And let's bring in ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy for more on this. So, Mick, Israel says it carried out these strikes because of an attack on IDF troops in Gaza and because Hamas hasn't returned all the dead hostages. Hamas says these strikes are a blatant violation of the ceasefire deal. Now, Israel says it will go back to adhering to and enforcing the ceasefire again. So who gets to decide if and when this ceasefire is on or off?
So, Diane, this is a very difficult situation, of course, because you're going to maintain a ceasefire unless you're attacked. And it's unclear whether it was Hamas that attacked the IDF or the many other armed groups that are in Gaza. Either way, they're going to defend themselves. If it's limited and they can both agree, so that's the answer to your question, both agree that that happened, but we're going back to the terms of the agreement, then that's who ultimately controls whether that's in fact the case. And I think we should all hope that is the case, because this needs not to go back to full-on combat. We need to head into, like Ian said, into the second phase, which is where Hamas disarms, there is a stabilization force that comes in, and much more is done to quell the humanitarian crisis that's going on in Gaza.
Mick, what good is a ceasefire if either side can just pause it at any time, strike the other side, and then say, okay, we're back on now?
So it's not ideal, of course, and this is part of the reason why they want to see Hamas disarmed, but Hamas is going to want to be protected in some form or fashion, whether it's to be sequestered in a certain part of Gaza and then protected by the stabilization force, or they get this safe passage as called for in the 20-point plan. Ultimately, this is going to happen. I think that we should understand that, so that every incident doesn't mean the collapse of the actual agreement. But as long as we can get back to a ceasefire and start making progress is what matters the most, even if it's incremental. The opposite of that would be going back to full-on combat, which we've seen the devastation that's caused, not only to Israelis, but to people in Gaza. So we don't want to see that happen.
Mick, where do things go from here?
Well, hopefully, while they're talking about how Hamas is going to disarm, that this international stabilization force is start being set up. King Abdullah of Jordan said this weekend that unless that disarmament happens, it's very unlikely that countries are going to want to send their forces in to forcibly disarm them. That said, they need to start being stood up now. They need integration. They need training. It's one thing to be a soldier. It's another thing to be a peacekeeper. And they need to be integrated into this cell that is the U.S. set up in Israel, which one of their main purposes is to ensure the coordination that would have this force deploy. That needs to be happening. So even when Hamas does disarm, if they disarm, there's not a big gap between that and when this force is introduced into Gaza to help stabilize the situation there.
All right, ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy, thank you.